Every nation has a rule book, a master plan that says how the country should run. For India, that's its constitution. But what happens when that rule book has to do two things at once? When it has to lay down the guaranteed laws for today, but also sketch out the ambitious dreams for tomorrow? That's the really fascinating dynamic we're going to dive into.
I mean, think about it for a second. How does a country's main document build a solid, unshakable foundation of rights for its people while at the same time painting a picture of the kind of society it hopes to become one day?
And that right there is the heart of what we're talking about today. It's like looking at two different blueprints. India's constitution has what you could call the must-have foundations. We know them as fundamental rights. And then it has the dream features, which are called the directive principles of state policy.
So here's our game plan. We'll break down what each of these blueprints are, then we'll put them head to head to see exactly how they're different. We'll look at an amazing real-world case of how a dream became a guarantee. And finally, we'll talk about what this balancing act means for the future.
Okay, let's start with the absolute bedrock, your fundamental rights. It is so important to understand that these are not suggestions. They're not just nice-to-haves. They are the rock-solid, non-negotiable protections promised to every single citizen of India. To really get how important these are, check this out. Part 3 of the Constitution, where all these rights live, is often called the Magna Carta of India. That's a huge deal. It's a direct comparison to that ancient charter that first said, hey, everyone, even the king, has to follow the law. It just shows you how truly foundational these rights are meant to be. So what are they exactly? Well, fundamental rights are the basic human rights that are guaranteed to all citizens by the Constitution itself. You can find them all laid out in Part 3, from Articles 12 to 35. And fun fact, the framers of the Constitution got a lot of their inspiration for these from the U.S. Bill of Rights. As of today, these rights are broken down into 6 main categories, and they cover a ton of ground, from equality and freedom of speech to protection from exploitation and religious freedom. But see that last one, the right to constitutional remedies? That one's the real game changer. It's what gives all the others their teeth. The chief architect of the Indian Constitution, the brilliant Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, actually called Article 32 the heart and soul of the whole document. Why? Because this article is the one that gives every single citizen the power to go directly to the Supreme Court if any of their other fundamental rights are violated. It's the right that makes all the other rights real.
Okay, so we've got our foundation set. Now let's look up at the other blueprint, the state's guiding principles. If fundamental rights are that solid floor under our feet, then these principles, they're the high ceiling we're always reaching for. They're the aspirational goals for the nation. These are what's known as the Directive Principles of State Policy, or just DSPS for short. You'll find them in Part 4 of the Constitution, and they're basically a to-do list for the government. They're guidelines to follow when making laws. And the ultimate goal? To build a society with true social and economic democracy, a country that cares about things like equal justice, fair pay, and protecting the environment. And right here, this is the single biggest difference between the two. You absolutely have to get this. Unlike fundamental rights, you can't take the government to court for not following a directive principle. They're goals, right? Aspirations. They are not legal guarantees you can enforce.
All right, let's put these two side by side. This is where the differences really pop and everything starts to click. But first, one quick bit of legal jargon we need to know. The word justiciable. It sounds complicated, I know, but all it really means is this. Can you take it to court? If something is justiciable, you can sue the government to get it enforced. If it's not, well, you can't. Simple as that. Okay, let's break this down. First up, enforceability. Can you take it to court? For fundamental rights, the answer is a big yes. They are justiciable. For directive principles, no, they're not. What about the goal? Fundamental rights are all about political democracy, protecting you, the individual. DPSPs, on the other hand, are aiming for social and economic democracy for the whole community. And here's a really interesting one, suspension. During a national emergency, most of your fundamental rights can be put on pause, but directive principles, they can never be suspended. They are always there, guiding the state no matter what. So you look at all those differences, and it's easy to think, wow, these things must be in conflict all the time. But what if that's not the right way to think about it at all? What if they're actually designed to work together, like two sides of the same coin? So how does that partnership actually play out in the real world? Let's look at a perfect example of how one of those dream features, a directive principle, can actually evolve and become a must-have fundamental right. Let's talk about the right to education. For years and years, Article 45, which was a directive principle, held out the goal of free education. It was something the state should try to do.
Then, in 2002, something amazing happened. Parliament passed the 86th Amendment, and what did it do? It created a brand new Article 21A, and bam, it transformed that aspirational goal into a guaranteed, legally enforceable fundamental right. A dream literally became a reality. So when you put all of this together, what you start to see is this incredible, dynamic balance that was built right into the Constitution from the very beginning. It's a kind of dual vision for the nation. And this is really the key takeaway from our whole conversation. Think of it like this. The fundamental rights are the floor. They're the absolute, non-negotiable minimum standard of freedom that every single person is guaranteed. The directive principles, they're the ceiling. The high ideals, the collective goals that the nation is always striving to reach. One provides a solid foundation, while the other points us toward the future. And this leaves us with one final big question to think about. This balance between what's guaranteed for an individual and what's hoped for by the whole community. It's not a settled thing. It's a constant, ongoing conversation. The story of the right to education proves that the Constitution is a living document, that it can change and grow. So the question for all of us, for every generation, is how do we keep finding the right balance for our time?